In just 49 seconds, one of Britain's most beloved actresses went from smiling politely to standing up and declaring she was done with the entire show. What started as friendly conversation exploded into a full-blown war of words that left the studio audience gasping and the cameras struggling to keep up. Helen Mirren, the icon who never loses her cool, finally reached her breaking point, with host Denise Welch, in a confrontation so intense that security had to get involved. The atmosphere in the studio last night started off pleasant enough. Helen Mirren walked onto the set wearing an elegant navy dress, waving to the audience who erupted in applause. She took her seat on the famous orange sofa, crossing her legs and smiling warmly at the panel. Denise Welch, sitting in her usual spot, greeted Helen with what seemed like enthusiasm. But there was something in her eyes that suggested she had other plans for this conversation. "Helen, wonderful to have you here," Denise began, leaning forward with a grin that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Now, I've been dying to ask you about something. You've played queens, spies, all these powerful women. But tell me, do you think you've actually done anything important for real women? Or is it all just pretend?" The other panelists shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Helen's smile faltered for just a moment before she composed herself. "Well, Denise, I think representation matters quite a bit actually. When young women see strong female characters on screen, it opens up possibilities in their minds about what they can become." Denise waved her hand dismissively. Yes, but that's just acting though, isn't it? I mean, anyone can pretend to be strong on camera. What have you done in the real world? Any actual activism? Or are you too busy collecting awards?" Helen's posture stiffened slightly. She maintained her grace, but her voice took on a firmer edge. "I've worked with numerous charities over the years, actually. I've used my platform to raise awareness for causes I believe in, but I don't feel the need to broadcast every good deed for approval." Right, Denise interrupted, barely letting Helen finish her sentence. "But some might say that's convenient, isn't it? You get all the glory of playing these incredible women. You get the fame and the money, but when it comes to actually standing up for something controversial, you're nowhere to be found." The audience had gone quiet. You could feel the tension spreading through the studio like a cold wind. One of the other panelists tried to interject. "Denise, I think that's a bit unfair." No, let me finish." Denise cut her off sharply. "Helen, I'm just asking the questions that people at home are thinking. You're this big feminist icon, supposedly, but you've stayed pretty silent on a lot of important issues lately. Why is that?" Helen uncrossed her legs and sat up straighter. Her famous composure was beginning to crack. "What issues specifically are you referring to, Denise? Because I'd love to know what you think I should be commenting on that I haven't." "Well, for starters, the whole conversation about gender and biological women," Denise pressed on, her voice getting sharper. "You've been awfully quiet about protecting women's spaces. Or do you not care about that because it might upset some people?" Helen's jaw tightened. "I care deeply about women's rights, but I don't think I need to prove that to you or anyone else by jumping on every trending topic to give you a soundbite." "So you admit you're scared then?" Denise shot back quickly. "Scared to say what you really think because you might lose some fans or some roles. At least I say what I believe, even when it's unpopular." "That's not what I said at all," Helen replied, her voice rising slightly. "I'm saying that I choose my battles carefully and I don't perform my beliefs for television ratings." Denise laughed, but it wasn't a friendly laugh. It was cold and mocking. "Oh, so that's what this is? You think you're too good for our show? Too sophisticated to have a real conversation?" "I came here to have a conversation," Helen said firmly. "What I didn't come here for was to be ambushed and accused of not being a good enough feminist by someone who's clearly set this up as some kind of trap." The other panelists looked at each other nervously. One of them tried again to change the subject. "Why don't we talk about Helen's new project?" "I'm not finished," Denise snapped, cutting her colleague off without even looking at her. "Helen, you talk about choosing your battles, but it seems to me like you don't choose any battles at all. You're perfectly happy to accept awards and praise for playing strong women, but when it comes to actually being one in real life, you're silent." Helen's face flushed red. "How dare you suggest I'm not a strong woman? You have no idea what I've dealt with in my career, the battles I've fought behind the scenes, the doors I've had to kick down. Just because I don't perform my activism on social media for likes and attention doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Behind the scenes, Denise repeated mockingly. How convenient that no one can verify any of this. Look, Helen, I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. You're past your prime, you're trying to stay relevant, and the easiest way to do that is to play it safe and not offend anyone. It's actually quite sad to watch. The audience gasped audibly. This had crossed a line, and everyone knew it. Helen's eyes went wide with disbelief and anger. Past my prime? You're sitting there, hosting a daytime talk show where you ambush your guests, and you have the nerve to talk about relevance? At least I'm honest, Denise fired back. At least I don't hide behind this fake politeness and pretend I'm above it all. You're not royalty, Helen, even though you've played queens. You're just an actress who's gotten too comfortable and too soft. Helen stood up abruptly, yanking off her microphone. I came here as a guest, to have what I thought would be a respectful conversation. Instead, I've been insulted, belittled, and attacked from the moment I sat down. This isn't journalism, Denise. This is bullying. Oh, sit down, Denise said dismissively. Don't be so dramatic. If you can't handle a few tough questions, maybe you shouldn't do interviews at all. Tough questions? Helen's voice was shaking with rage now. You haven't asked me a single legitimate question. You've done nothing but try to provoke me and make me look bad for your viewers. What's the matter, Denise? Are your ratings slipping? Is that why you need to manufacture drama? Denise's face went red. My ratings are just fine, thank you very much. Better than your last few films performed at the box office, I'd wager. You know what your problem is? Helen said, her voice loud enough now that it echoed through the studio. You're so desperate to be seen as edgy and controversial that you've forgotten how to be decent. You hide behind this persona of telling it like it is, but really, you're just rude. There's a difference between being honest and being cruel, and you've clearly never learned that. Denise stood up now too, matching Helen's energy. I'm cruel? That's rich coming from someone in your industry. You want to talk about cruel? Let's talk about how Hollywood treats women over 50. Let's talk about how you've played the game for decades, never speaking up about the real problems, because it might cost you your career. At least I stand for something. You stand for ratings and attention, Helen shot back. You don't care about women's rights or any of the issues you claim to champion. You care about creating viral moments and controversial clips that people will share online. That's not activism. That's narcissism. The other panelists were frozen in their seats, unsure whether to intervene or stay quiet. The audience was completely silent, watching this confrontation unfold like a car crash in slow motion. Denise took a step closer to Helen, her finger pointing accusingly. You don't know anything about me or what I believe, Denise hissed. You come in here with your fancy accent and your posh attitude, looking down on the rest of us who actually work for a living instead of playing dress-up for millions of pounds. Working for a living? Helen laughed bitterly. Is that what you call this? Attacking your guests and creating hostile environments? I've been working in this industry for over 50 years, Denise. I've earned every single thing I have. What have you earned besides a reputation for being difficult? Get out, Denise said suddenly, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. Get out of my studio right now. Your studio? Helen raised her eyebrows. I don't think you own this building, Denise. But I'll gladly leave because I've had quite enough of your nonsense. No, you don't get to leave on your own terms, Denise said, her voice rising again. I'm kicking you out. You're not welcome here. Security! Helen grabbed her handbag from beside the sofa. You can't kick me out. I'm walking out because I choose to. There's a difference, though I doubt you understand the concept of choice, given how you've structured this entire ambush. 2 security guards appeared from the wings, looking uncertain about what they were supposed to do. Denise pointed at Helen. Escort her out, now. Don't you dare touch me, Helen warned the security guards, holding up her hand. I'm leaving of my own accord. I don't need an escort. One of the other panelists finally found her voice. This is insane. Denise, you can't just kick guests off the show. Helen, please, maybe we can all calm down and... There's nothing to calm down, Helen said, her voice icy now. I'm done. I came here in good faith and I was treated with nothing but disrespect and hostility. Denise, you should be ashamed of yourself. This isn't entertainment. This is cruelty disguised as conversation. Save your speech for someone who cares, Denise sneered. You can play the victim all you want, but everyone watching knows you couldn't handle a real conversation. You're used to people kissing your arse and treating you like you're special. Well, not here, not on my watch. Helen turned to face the audience directly. I apologize to all of you for this spectacle. You deserved better than to watch this hostility masquerading as an interview. I hope you'll think carefully about what kind of content you're supporting when you tune into shows like this. Oh, don't apologize to them, Denise called out. They came here for entertainment, and we've certainly given them that. They'll be talking about this for weeks. They'll be talking about how you bullied a guest and created a toxic environment, Helen corrected. That's what they'll remember, not your brave questions or your bold stance. They'll remember how you treated someone with contempt for no reason other than your own ego. Denise walked around the desk, getting closer to Helen. My ego? You're the one who walks around like the Queen of England, even though you just played her in a movie. You're the one who thinks you're too good to answer honest questions about your relevance and your silence on important issues. I've answered every legitimate question you've asked, Helen said, her voice steady despite her obvious anger. What I won't do is engage with your attempts to drag me into whatever ratings game you're playing. I have more respect for myself and for the audience than that. Then leave, Denise shouted. Stop standing here making speeches and just get out. I'm going, Helen said, turning toward the exit. But mark my words, Denise. This kind of behavior catches up with people. You can't build a career on tearing others down and expect it to last. Eventually, people see through it. Is that a threat? Denise asked, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Are you going to use your influence to get me canceled? Is that what powerful women do, Helen? Helen stopped at the edge of the stage and turned back one last time. It's not a threat. It's an observation from someone who's been in this industry long enough to recognize a crash and burn when I see one coming. Good luck, Denise. You're going to need it. Get the hell out of my studio, Denise screamed, her voice cracking with rage. And don't ever come back. Don't worry, Helen called back as she walked off the stage. I wouldn't dream of it. I have standards. The sound of Helen's heels clicking on the floor echoed through the now silent studio. The camera operators didn't know whether to keep filming or cut away. The other panelists sat frozen, staring at Denise in shock. The audience remained completely quiet, processing what they'd just witnessed. Denise stood center stage, breathing heavily. Her face still flushed red with anger. She tried to compose herself, smoothing down her hair and straightening her blazer. Well, she said, trying to sound casual but failing. That went well, didn't it? Nobody laughed. The awkward silence stretched on for what felt like hours but was probably only a few seconds. One of the producers could be heard saying something off camera, but it wasn't clear what. Denise looked around at her fellow panelists, who were all avoiding eye contact. What? Denise asked defensively. She couldn't handle a real conversation. That's not my fault. I asked her fair questions and she got all precious about it. One of the other panelists shook her head slowly. Denise, that wasn't a conversation. That was an attack. Oh, don't you start as well, Denise snapped. Everyone's always so sensitive. God forbid we actually challenge these celebrities instead of just fawning over them the whole time. There's challenging, and then there's what you just did, another panelist said quietly. That crossed so many lines. Denise waved her hand dismissively. Fine, fine. Everyone thinks I'm the villain, whatever. At least I'm not a fake who pretends to care about issues but stays silent when it matters. She's right, you know, the first panelist said. People are going to see through this. They're going to see exactly what this was. And what was it? Denise challenged, her voice rising again. What was it then? It was you tearing down another woman for entertainment, came the reply. It was you using your platform to bully someone, instead of having an actual conversation. That's what people are going to remember. Denise's face went from red to pale. For just a moment, a flicker of doubt crossed her features, but then her jaw set firmly and she crossed her arms. I don't care what people think. I did my job. If Helen Mirren can't handle tough questions, that's her problem, not mine. The camera finally cut away to a commercial break, but the damage was done. In those 49 seconds that started this whole disaster, and the explosive minutes that followed, a confrontation had unfolded that would be replayed, analyzed, and talked about everywhere. Helen Mirren, one of the most respected actresses in the world, had been pushed to her breaking point. She had stood up, torn off her microphone, and walked out of a studio she should never have entered in the first place. The show tried to continue after the break, but the energy was completely gone. Denise attempted to move on to other topics, but it felt hollow and forced. The other panelists were subdued, clearly uncomfortable with what had happened. The audience, when shown on camera, looked shocked and upset rather than entertained. Behind the scenes, according to people in the studio, there was chaos. Producers were frantically making phone calls. The network executives were apparently being notified. Helen's team was seen leaving the building quickly, refusing to comment to anyone. The security guards, who had been called to escort Helen out, were standing around looking confused, having never actually needed to do anything. What made this confrontation so explosive wasn't just the anger or the raised voices. It was watching someone like Denise Welch, who positions herself as a champion of women and an honest voice, systematically attack and belittle another woman for no reason other than to create drama. Every question had been designed not to illuminate or inform, but to provoke and wound. Every response from Helen had been met with mockery or dismissal. The turning point came when Denise attacked Helen's relevance and called her past her prime. That was the moment when this stopped being a debate about issues and became personal. That was when Helen realized she wasn't in an interview, she was in a trap. And unlike many guests who might have tried to laugh it off or keep smiling through the discomfort, Helen Mirren made the choice to stand up for herself. Her decision to remove her own microphone was significant. It was a power move that said, "You don't get to control my voice anymore." When Denise tried to claim she was kicking Helen out, Helen immediately corrected that narrative. She was leaving on her own terms, exercising her own agency. That distinction mattered immensely in a situation where Denise had been trying to control and dominate the entire conversation. The involvement of security guards was particularly telling. Denise called for them not because there was any physical threat or security concern, but as a final attempt to humiliate Helen by having her forcibly removed. The fact that the guards appeared but clearly didn't want to actually touch Helen showed that even they understood how inappropriate the situation had become. Helen's final words to the audience were masterful. Instead of leaving in silent anger, she took a moment to apologize to them for the spectacle, and to encourage them to think critically about what they were watching. It was a reminder that audiences have power too, that they can choose what kind of content to support. She was essentially asking them to hold Denise and shows like this accountable for creating hostile, toxic environments disguised as entertainment. Denise's response to all of this revealed everything about her mindset. Even after Helen left, even after the other panelists expressed their discomfort, Denise refused to acknowledge any wrongdoing. She doubled down, insisting that she had asked fair questions and that Helen was simply too sensitive. This is a classic tactic of bullies everywhere. Blame the victim for reacting to the bullying rather than taking responsibility for the behavior that caused the reaction. The contrast between the two women couldn't have been clearer. Helen remained relatively composed even in her anger, making her points clearly and standing up for herself with dignity. Denise became increasingly unhinged, shouting, insulting, and eventually screaming at her guests to get out. One woman demonstrated grace under pressure. The other demonstrated exactly why she shouldn't be trusted with a platform. What started as a seemingly normal celebrity interview had descended into one of the most uncomfortable confrontations in recent television history. All because one host decided that creating drama was more important than treating her guest with basic respect and decency. The 49 seconds that started this confrontation would be remembered, but so would every minute that followed, culminating in Helen Mirren walking off that stage with her head held high while Denise Welch's reputation crumbled behind her.